Here we're looking at the OWASP Application Security Verification Standard, or ASVS version 4. In particular, we're going to look at password security. So 2.1.1 is verified that users set passwords that are at least 12 characters long after multiple spaces are combined. That means what we're saying is passwords should be a minimum 12 characters. There are lots of things about passwords in ASVS, and we're going to cover the rest of them here so you get a good idea. 2.1.2 verify that passwords of at least 64 characters are permitted and passwords of more than 128 characters are denied. What we're seeing is you can have quite long character lengths, 64 characters. At the most, you can have 128. We don't want that size to be infinite. Verify that password truncation is not performed. However, consecutive multiple spaces may be replaced. What we're saying is if you have a character limit of 64 characters, and the user types a 68 character password, we're not going to truncate that. We should warn them there shouldn't be any truncation unless it's lots of spaces in that password being truncated to 1. 2.1.4 verify that any printable Unicode character, including language neutral characters such as emojis and spaces, are permitted. You can have emojis in your passwords if you want. 2.1.8 verify that a password strength meter is provided. Now, it doesn't go into great detail about saying what that password strength meter should do, but in general, it should be showing you all of the things we're talking about here, and we're going to round them up. We're going to sum them up in a second, so we'll see what sort of things the password strength meter should be using. Verify that there are no password composition rules limiting the type of characters permitted. So what this means is you shouldn't demand people have integers, uppercase characters, special characters in their password. If they want to just have alphabetical characters, they can. It should be entirely up to them. 2.1.7 is a long one. I've shortened it a little bit. Essentially what it's saying is verify that the passwords are checked against commonly used passwords. So if you were to do a search for GitHub top 1000 passwords or top 10,000 passwords, you could get a big list of the most commonly used passwords. And you can use that as a source to say if a user uses one of these passwords, then reject it. Say no, choose a better password. There are also external APIs that let you do that sort of thing. If you do use those external APIs, you shouldn't be sending the plain text password to the API. There should be a method of hashing it or similar. That means you don't expose the password that this user is trying to use. So rounding that up, minimum 12 characters for your password. You should allow up to 64 characters, but no more than 128. You shouldn't do any truncating unless it's spaces. You should allow Unicode, such as emojis. And there are no composition rules. You shouldn't demand certain types of character are in there. You should also have a strength meter to bring that all together and help the user see what a good password is. You should also check for those common passwords. So you should have some functionality to say, no, this is a really common password. You shouldn't be using it. Moving on to changing passwords, you should verify that the user can change their password. If they want to change it, they should be able to do that. Also verify that that password change functionality requires a user's current password. So when we're thinking about authentication, it's all about, can we prove that this user is who they say they are? So if you have the current password, then that's a proof that you are the user who's trying to change the password. If you haven't got that password, you shouldn't be able to change it. Obviously, there's forgotten password as well. But in that scenario, they're proving who they are, typically by having access to the email address. So we might send something to their email address to allow them to reset the password. The fact that they can access the email address means there's a good chance it is them. And verify there are no periodic credential rotations or password history requirements. You shouldn't force users to change their password unless something horrible's gone wrong, unless there's been some kind of breach. And you shouldn't keep track of their previous passwords. You shouldn't be saying you can't use that because you've used it in the past. They should be able to use whatever they want within the rules we've already defined. Verify that paste functionality. So when a user is entering their password, you can imagine if they've got a 64 character password, they don't really want to type that whole thing in. It's very common to use password managers to help with this sort of thing. Password managers are very good in terms of security, and in our applications, we should be helping that. We should make it easy for those password managers to put things in. We should make it easy for people to paste passwords in, that that sort of thing. That's very useful. We don't want to make security difficult. And verify that the user can choose to either temporarily view the masked password or temporarily view the last character. Again, this is important. If you've got a big long password and you make a mistake, you don't want to delete the whole thing and start typing again. It's very useful usability there to allow them to see either some or all of the password so that it helps them out getting that password in there. And that's it. That is OWASP ASVS version 4, in particular the password security aspect of it. Passwords, obviously very important, and it's really good to get them right. You have to think about both security and usability though.